Hi everyone, welcome back to Rheology Simplified, and now Beyond the Basics. In our last episode, we explored yield stress and wall slip. Today, we are taking the next step into one of my favorite topics in rheology, Thixotropy. It's a behavior that shows up everywhere, from coatings to food to 3D printing materials. So, what is Thixotropy? Let's remember the ketchup. You flip the bottle, nothing comes out, so you shake it, and it becomes thinner and flows. But here is the interesting part. When you stop shaking, it doesn't instantly thicken again. You get a little time window to open the lid, aim it at your fries, and pour before it goes back to being thick. Or paint, which behaves the same way. When you roll it onto a wall, you want it to thin out just enough to spread smoothly, but you don't want it to rebuild too fast, or you'll get brush marks. And you don't want it to rebuild too slowly, or it will sag and drip down the wall. This delicate balance, how fast the material breaks down under stress, and how fast it rebuilds when the stress is removed, is what we call time dependency. Now think about applying a constant shear rate to a material, a relatively low one. Some materials reach a steady state in just a few seconds. Others take hundreds or even thousands of seconds to settle into a steady state. When the material reaches a steady state quickly, any time dependency is so small, we can usually ignore it. We may call that time-independent behavior. But when it requires a substantial time to reach a steady state, that's a time-dependent material. And here's the important part. If the material's microstructure breaks down and becomes thinner over time under shear, then rebuilds itself and becomes thick again over time when the shear stops, and it does this reversibly, we call it Thixotropy. If the structure doesn't fully rebuild, or the change isn't reversible, then it is irreversible time-dependent behavior. So how do we measure Thixotropy? One of the most widely used tests is the flow ramp loop. We increase the shear rate from almost zero up to about 100 per second, and then bring it back down to the starting value. Many labs run this test in roughly 60 seconds, but I prefer stretching it to around 100 seconds. Using the analysis tools in Trio software, you can measure the area between the ramp up and ramp down curves. This area is often used as an index of Thixotropy. The larger the area, the more thixotropic the material. Why? Because during the ramp up, the microstructure is still intact. It needs time to break. So at low shear rates, the shear stress or viscosity appears higher than its true steady state value. But during the ramp down, the structure is already broken from the high shear rates. So when the shear rate comes back down, the stress or viscosity is much closer to the true value. And the more thixotropic the material is, the more pronounced this divergence between the two curves becomes. Here are two paints. One shows a very small loop. That means low thixotropy. The other shows a loop almost 100 times larger, a highly thixotropic paint. This test is great for quickly comparing materials, but there is a catch. this test is shear history dependent. What does that mean? In practice, different operators load the sample in slightly different ways. Sometimes the sample sits for only a few seconds before the test begins. Other times it may sit for minutes. For highly thixotropic materials, these small variations can have a significant impact on the results. All of this makes the repeatability of the test very challenging. Two people can run the same test on the same paint and get noticeably different results simply because the material's microstructure had a different starting point. The best way to improve repeatability is to erase the material's shear history and establish a consistent initial state. A simple approach is to apply a relatively high shear to fully break down the structure, then allow enough rest time for the material to recover and return to a controlled starting condition. You can use these pre-tests to establish a consistent initial state before running a flow ramp loop, or as mentioned in the previous episode, to achieve more reproducible static yield stress measurements. Now, to assess thixotropy, there is a method that, in a sense, builds this idea directly into the test. It erases the shear history and establishes a constant initial condition. We call it the three-step thixotropy test. You can run this test in shear or in oscillation. I prefer oscillation. Let me show you why. In shear, step 1, apply a very low shear rate and allow the material to reach a steady state. Step 2, apply a high shear rate to break the microstructure. Step 3, return to the low shear rate and watch how long it takes for the viscosity to recover to its original value. That recovery time is your thixotropy time. In oscillation, the idea is similar. Step 1, apply a small strain within the linear viscoelastic region, or LVR, and hold it long enough for G' and G" to become parallel. Step 2, apply a higher strain outside the linear viscoelastic region to break the structure. Step 3, return to the small strain and track G' and G" over time. When the structure is broken, G" is higher. The material behaves more liquid-like. As the microstructure rebuilds, G' rises and eventually overtakes G". Some people call this crossover the gel point. We continue the test until G' and G" become parallel again, meaning the structure is fully recovered. Here we see that ointment number 2 takes longer to rebuild its microstructure, indicating that it is more thixotropic than ointment number 1. And this is why I like this test more. It gives you far more information about the material's microstructure. And to wrap up, let me show you one last point. Look at these flow curves. At low shear rates, the viscosity drops. It looks like wall slip. But in this test, we use the roughened geometry, so wall slip is already mitigated. So what's happening? This actually stems from thixotropic behavior of the material. For any thixotropic material to have a unique and reproducible flow curve, every point must be measured at a steady state. The problem is that if the measurement time is shorter than the time the material actually needs to reach a steady state, the measured viscosity drops. The dynamic yield stress falls below its true value, and the curve looks like wall slip. This effect is especially noticeable when measuring from low to high shear rates. At high shear rates, the material reaches a steady state quickly, but at extremely low shear rates, it can take a long time. To avoid this wall slip-like drop, when running a flow sweep in trios using a steady state sensing, you simply set the maximum equilibration time based on the steady state time of the lowest shear rate in your curve. Doing so ensures that every point is measured at a steady state and the resulting flow curve no longer shows this false drop. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Across these last two episodes, we've talked about time dependency, yield stress, and wall slip. Because these concepts are tightly woven together, you really can't separate them. And once you understand how they influence each other, your rheology measurements become far more reliable and far more meaningful.